Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about low-code platforms. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, why is it that people say that low-code platforms are the future of software development? Do they? Who have you been talking to? Because there is exactly one single group of people that I've spoken to that claim this, and it is and I'm not kidding now, guys, the Department of Low Code Development in the company that I'm working for. That is the only group I've ever heard even speak these words, because there's sure as hell nobody in any product development team or any software development team or any DevOps or ops, like anybody else is saying this. Maybe a few influencers here and there, but of course the low code people, they are saying this. Yet somehow, like based on well, let's just say the results that have been produced, there is this doubt as to whether or not it's safe to allow certain projects to be handed over to low-code developers. And more we are seeing that it starts that way and it's coming back over into my department at least. I'm not going to speak too much about this, but they basically go back to they give us responsibility over the project again. And there is a very good reason for that, and it's not because, as many believe, that I don't think that low code is a good idea or that software developers generally find low code solutions bad or something like that. That's because it's the same argument I make towards people who have a prejudice against a classic one is Java. So when I started in school, quite a lot of people were telling me things about Java being slow, it's being this, it's that, and so forth and so forth. And I always came back with the same sort of argument to them, and that was just asking them basically, have you used it? No, of course not. Same deal with JavaScript. I've talked to so many software developers who say that JavaScript is shit, and I ask, have you used it? Oh yeah, I have. Okay, are you any good at it? No, I've only used it a little bit here and there. Okay, so what you're saying is that this thing that you don't really know how to use well, that it's bad. Because the thing is, when I talk to masters of the language or people who are really, really good at it, for some reason, because like in JavaScript land, it's very easy. Like it is literally the biggest programming language in the world. No, like full stop. There is nothing bigger in terms of community and spread and stuff like that. And somehow the world is not on fire. So I'm guessing that there's some people who know how to use it well. I've seen a few of them, and that's sort of the argument I make for low code as well. Like blaming low code platforms, which some people do, for being something that is inefficient or so forth and so forth, is a little bit, I argue, like telling a carpenter, or like a carpenter complaining about if you're trying to saw off a log using a hammer and then you blame the hammer, then I think you're sort of pointing the finger in the wrong direction. And that's the thing I want you to understand about low code, guys. Like, I will argue that there is a truth to that low code platforms are the future of software development, and we're going to touch on why. And for those of you who've watched other videos, you probably know where I'm going with this. But the thing I want to drive home really, really quickly is because a lot of the people that I talk to are software developers. My personal standpoint on low code is the same standpoint I have on programming languages and stuff like that. If you know when to use it and how to use it, practically anything will do. And that is always more or less going to be my personal standpoint. You pick, as I like to say, I'm problem oriented. You pick the tool based on the problem that you are solving. And I have lost count how many times I've talked to software developers who overcomplicate projects because for some reason they can't think outside of their programming language. And I argue to people that's why it's good for you to try out some stuff and see a little bit of the world, so to speak. It's the basic idea of traveling and stuff like that, where if you see some stuff, you have more things to draw upon when you're trying to come up with a solution. And so when I try to solve a problem, I'm not always thinking I should build this in JavaScript, or I'm always thinking I should build this in C# just because those are the main languages I use these days. I think about things like, can this be a shell script? Can this just be an Excel file? Can this be a low-code platform? Can this be like, you think about the range of possibilities that you have available to you. And that is why it's pretty good to not forget that there is more than one way to solve any given problem. So what I'm saying is that the people who are probably telling you that low-code platforms are the future, they are full of shit. Because there is a situation where that statement, I argue, would be true, at least if you ask me. But the problem is time. Like, when is this future coming? Because I can tell you right now that there's sure as hell no low-code platform today that is taking over like the vast majority of mainstream programming. We're still doing things exactly, practically. Like if you wanted to get my rundown, my total rundown of all the major things that have changed in the past 15 years that I've worked as a software developer, and we're talking major changes, is moved to cloud, like the cloud providers becoming more of a presence, containers, single page applications. That's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure, like with DevOps, like you can. There's more to it, of course, but nothing there is low code, because low code was there way before most people think that. Like, I mean, shit, guys. Does anybody know what Dreamweaver is? Now that's not necessarily a low code platform, but that was the OG version of using Power Apps or having AI build stuff for you or stuff like that. Like, so it's not like these ideas haven't been around, it's just that they've never took. And there's not a single low-code platform, save for, you know, I mean, if you're gonna call Drupal and like web, and WordPress and stuff like that low-code, technically they are low-code, but I mean, they are far from the norm in mainstream development for large-scale systems. They are very popular, very useful tools, and if you know how to use them and when to use them, they are amazing tools. But it's really not the question of that they're taking over, because it's different. Like, there are two different paths here. Like I usually say to people, low-code and similar sorts of off-shelf solutions, these are things that it's akin to going to a clothing store and buying a shirt that's in your size. If you are a fit for that shirt, it's going to look really nice on you. However, if you want something custom made, tailored to you as an individual, then you're going to have to go to a tailor. I'm a tailor. And most of the people who work as software developers, at the very least in the web industry or the web field, they are tailors. We are building custom solutions for people, and as you can imagine, that's of course more expensive and it has a bunch of drawbacks, but it's also possible to do some things with that approach that is not as easy to do with low code. The one thing that I will give low code in terms of having a future is that the current trend that I am seeing is that we're moving from having a very distributed ecosystem of various competencies within a given development team, like it used to be the case that you still have. You have DBAs, you have DevOps, like your operations people, developers, front end, back end, QAs, testers. Like there's a bunch of roles that you could potentially have, and that's not even the end of this list. That can go on and on, right? Towards people moving towards more DevOps, DevSecOps and stuff like that. They were trying to consolidate all the knowledge necessary in order to run a system into the software developer, because if you didn't know it, it's pretty expensive to pay people like myself and other software developers to build software for you. It's pricey as fuck. And in order to mitigate a little bit of that cost, the more time that you can invest into making sure that the time I am spending on writing code, like reducing that, the better. That's why AI is such a high price now, because if you can get the AI to build most of the system, you will speed up the development quite drastically. In other words, my time will be cheaper. And I mean, the end goal is of course to make me completely redundant and just have something similar to, as I like to say, a calculator. Calculator would be a perfect invention, like where you just you have a machine, like a search engine or something like that, where you can tell ChatGPT or Copilot or some AI like, hey, I need you to build this, and then some flow that you have makes it so perfectly simple that even like a complete beginner can produce a system of high quality and then maintain that over time. That is, I mean, that's the dream. But I mean, I argue that's the same thing for anything. Like, I mean, construction workers, they don't have a future either, depending on how you look at it. Because in the someday, I hope we're going to have robots that build everything for us. We might just put a little pill on the sidewalk, put some water on that thing, and all of a sudden it sprang up a skyscraper. So what I want you to take away from this is that if people are telling you that low-code platforms are the future, they are shitting you right now, I would say. There is no future that I can see that where like there's a collision between the need for software developers and people doing low code. Low code has its use case for sure, just as like doing mainstream program as I do has its use case. And the thing that I urge you to do is to not to look at these things as good or bad. They're just solutions to problems. Don't get into this weird thing that some people do with programming language where, oh, this language is good and that one is bad, etc., etc. Yeah, sure, you might like a language less or more. That's perfectly fine. Everybody has their preference, myself included. But the thing that should set you apart as a mature senior software developer for the time when you get there is that you look at software development and coding and these various tools that you have as just that. It's just a tool that allows you to produce some type of results. And when you understand what result you are trying to achieve, then you will know when you go with a low-code solution and when you build something custom made. Have a great day.